Hey guys, welcome back to more r/idoworkherelady Reddit stories. In today's Ripestories video, imagine building a company from your garage into a 350-employee factory, and then one day a supervisor looks you in the eye, calls you an intruder, and reports you to the police as a threat. But the craziest part of all this, she did not know that I owned the place and that I was her boss. Let's dive right into the video. And today's title story is titled, Racist Karen Supervisor Calls 911, Bans Me from the Factory Premises, but I am the company founder. So for some background about me, I'm a 47-year-old Indian-American guy who founded a manufacturing company that produces specialty industrial equipment. We employ about 350 people across 2 facilities, and I'm pretty proud of what we have built over the past 15 years. The company started in my garage with just me and my business partner, and now we are doing very well. Here's the thing about being a business owner though, you cannot be everywhere at once, but you need to know what is happening in your facilities. I learned early on that when employees know the big boss is walking around, behavior changes. People suddenly become more productive, customer service improves, and problems that have been lingering for weeks magically get solved overnight. But that's not the real picture of how things operate day to day. So I developed this habit of doing what I call ghost walks through our facilities. I dress down in regular work clothes, keep my head down, and observe. Sometimes I will wear a hard hat and safety vest like any other visitor, or just jeans and a work shirt, but the goal is to blend in and see how things really run when nobody thinks the owner is watching. Our main production facility runs 3 shifts, and I try to visit during different times to get a complete picture. The day shift usually runs the smoothest because that is when most of the senior management is around. Night shift can get a little loose with procedures, but evening shift, that is where you really see personality conflicts and management issues come to the surface. About 8 months ago, we hired a new shift supervisor for the evening crew. Let's just call her Riley, not her real name, and she came with decent references from a competitor. For the context of the story, I must also add that she's a migrant and her parents were originally from Belarus. During the interview process, I was told she seemed competent enough, 15 years of manufacturing experience, good technical knowledge, and she interviewed well with our HR team. What we didn't anticipate was how she would interact with our diverse workforce. Our factory floor employs people from all kinds of backgrounds. We've got a significant Latino population, several Indian and Pakistani engineers, some Eastern European machine operators, and a good mix of American workers of all ethnicities. It's always been one of the things I'm most proud of about our company culture. We hire based on skill and work ethic, period. The first red flags about Riley started showing up in our monthly production reports. Evening shift productivity was down about 12%, and we were seeing an uptick in safety incidents. More concerning though were the informal complaints filtering up through HR. Nothing official, but workers were mentioning increased tension, poor communication, and general unhappiness with the new supervisor. I decided it was time for one of my ghost walks, so I picked a Thursday evening in March and showed up around 4:30, just as the evening shift was taking over from day shift. I, dressed in dark jeans, steel-toed boots, and a plain navy work shirt, the kind of outfit any contractor or vendor might wear when visiting the facility, I grabbed a visitor badge from the reception, telling the front desk clerk that I was there to inspect some equipment for a potential maintenance contract. The production floor was busy with the shift change. Day shift workers were finishing up their tasks and briefing the evening crew on any ongoing issues. I positioned myself near the main assembly line where I could observe the handover process, and that is when I first saw Riley in action. She was a woman in her early 50s, average height with graying hair, pulled back in a tight ponytail. She carried herself with a kind of aggressive confidence that immediately put people on edge. I watched as she approached Miguel, one of our best machine operators who had been with the company for 7 years. "Did you finish the calibration on Station 4? She asked him, not rudely but with an edge to her tone. Miguel nodded and started explaining the adjustments he had made during his shift, but before he could finish, Riley cut him off and said, "I don't need the whole story, just tell me if it's done or not." I frowned. That was not how we trained supervisors to communicate with their teams. Miguel looked frustrated but kept his professionalism intact. Over the next hour, I watched similar interactions play out across the floor. Riley's management style was abrasive at best. She interrupted workers, dismissed their input, and generally treated the evening crew like they were incompetent children rather than skilled technicians. But it was her interaction with Ananya, one of our quality control engineers, that really opened my eyes to the actual problem. But Ananya is brilliant. She has a master's degree in mechanical engineering from MIT and catches quality issues that save us thousands of dollars in returns and warranty claims. She's also soft-spoken and has a noticeable Indian accent. I watched Riley approach Ananya's station, where she was reviewing some test results on her computer screen. "What's taking so long over here?" Riley demanded. Ananya looked up, clearly startled by the aggressive tone. "I'm reviewing the tolerance measurements from the morning batch. There are some readings that are borderline, and I just want to make sure we are not shipping anything that might fail in the field." "Listen," Riley said, and I could hear the condensation dripping from her voice even from 20 feet away. "I don't know how you people did things back in India, but here in America we have production schedules to meet. You cannot just sit around all day staring at numbers on a computer screen." My blood pressure spiked. Ananya's face flushed, but she maintained her composure. "I understand the schedule pressure, but if we ship defective parts, the cost of returns and repairs will be much higher than the cost of catching problems now." Riley stepped closer to Ananya's workstation. "Are you arguing with me? Because last time I checked, I'm the supervisor here and you're just a quality checker." "Quality engineer," Ananya corrected quietly. "Whatever. The point is, I give the orders and you follow them. If I say the parts are good enough to ship, then they are good enough to ship. You got that?" I had seen enough. This was not just poor management, it was discriminatory harassment, and it was happening on my factory floor. But I also knew that if I revealed myself as the owner right then, Riley would just claim she was misunderstood, and I would not have a complete picture of the situation, so I kept watching and listening. And by the way, guys, if you would be the company owner / CEO / boss of Riley, what would you have done in this situation? Would you have stopped her right then and there, or would you have kept her going? Let me know what you would have done in the comments. And by the way, I would really appreciate it if we could reach 1000 likes on the video, because that helps a lot with the algorithm. Thank you so much. Over the next 2 hours, I witnessed Riley's pattern of behavior become crystal clear. She was respectful, even friendly with some workers on her shift, but her interactions with employees of color, particularly those with accents or foreign-sounding names, were consistently hostile and dismissive. She questioned their competence, micromanaged their work, and made subtle comments about how things are done in America whenever someone offered a suggestion or asked for clarification on procedures. The breaking point came soon, though. I was observing near the shipping dock when I heard raised voices from the main assembly area. Riley was standing over Raj, one of our most experienced technicians, who was kneeling beside a piece of equipment with his tools spread out around him. "What's the holdup?" Riley's voice carried across the factory floor. "The pneumatic cylinder is not cycling properly," Raj explained patiently. "I need to adjust the pressure settings and check the airlines. It'll take about 20 minutes to do it right." 20 minutes? We don't have 20 minutes. Just bypass it for now and fix it tomorrow. Raj looked up at her with concern. "I cannot do that. It's a safety-critical component. If it fails during operation, someone could get seriously injured." "Don't lecture me about safety. I've been doing this job since before you even came to this country." That was it. I'd heard enough. I started walking towards Riley and Raj, pulling out my phone as I approached, but before I could even intervene, things escalated further. "Look," Riley continued, her voice getting louder. "I don't know what kind of half-baked safety standards you had back in whatever third-world country you crawled out of, but here we have deadlines to meet. Fix it tomorrow." Raj stood up slowly, his face a mask of controlled anger. "With all due respect, ma'am, I'm not gonna compromise worker safety to meet a shipping deadline. That's not how this company operates." "Oh, really? And who exactly do you think you are to tell me how this company operates?" I was about 10 feet away when Riley spotted me approaching. Her eyes narrowed as she took in my appearance, obviously not an employee, but wearing work clothes and carrying myself like I belonged on the factory floor. "Excuse me," she called out, her tone shifting to the authoritative voice she probably reserved for vendors and contractors. "This is a restricted work area. You need to leave immediately." I stopped walking and looked at her calmly. "Actually, I'm just observing some of your quality control procedures. I've authorization to be here." "I don't care what you think you have authorization for. I'm the supervisor and I'm telling you to get out of here." Raj was watching this exchange with obvious confusion. Several other workers had stopped what they were doing to see what was happening, and I pulled out my visitor badge and showed it to Riley. "As you can see, I checked in properly at the front desk." She barely glanced at the badge. "I don't care if you're here to inspect the coffee machine. You're disrupting my workers and you need to leave now." "I'm not disrupting anyone, I'm just watching your team work." Riley's face was turning red. "Listen, buddy, I don't know what kind of scam you're trying to pull here, but it's not gonna work. You're probably some kind of industrial spy trying to steal our processes." The accusation was so absurd I almost laughed at it. Industrial spy, huh? Don't play dumb with me, I've seen your type before. You people come in here pretending to be legitimate contractors, but really you're just trying to steal American jobs and American technology to send back to your home countries. The racist undertones in her comment were not even subtle anymore. I could see the shock and embarrassment on the face of the workers who were listening. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," I said evenly. "The only misunderstanding here is you thinking you can waltz onto my factory floor and do whatever you want. Security!" She pulled out her radio and called for the security guard, and within a few minutes, Dave, our evening security officer, came jogging over. Dave had been with the company for about 3 years, I knew him well, and though he had never seen me in casual work clothes. "What's the problem, Riley?" Dave asked. "This man is trespassing. He claims to have authorization, but I want him removed from the premises immediately." Dave looked at me with professional courtesy. "Well, everything appears to be in order," Dave said diplomatically. "He's signed in as a contractor doing equipment inspection." "I don't care what he's signed in as," Riley snapped. "I'm telling you he's not supposed to be here. Get him out." Dave was in an awkward position. As security, he had authority to remove people from the premises, but he could also see that I'd followed proper check-in procedures. "Sir," Dave said to me, "would you mind explaining exactly what you are here to inspect?" I was about to answer when Riley interrupted again. "Don't waste time with explanations, just escort him out. And if he refuses to leave, call the police." "Ma'am," Dave said carefully, "I think we should follow proper procedure here." "I'm following proper procedure. I'm the supervisor, and I have the authority to determine who belongs on my factory floor and who doesn't." That is when she made her biggest mistake. Riley grabbed her cell phone and started dialing. "Fine, if you won't do your job, I will call 911 myself. I'm hereby banning this intruder from the premises." "Riley, wait," Dave said, clearly uncomfortable with the escalation, but Riley was already talking to the emergency dispatcher. "Yeah, I need police at XYZ factory. We have a trespasser who's refusing to leave the premises. He appears to be of Middle Eastern or Indian descent, and I'm concerned he might be conducting industrial espionage." I couldn't believe what I was hearing here. She had just described me to police as a potential terrorist based on nothing but my ethnicity and her own paranoia, and the workers who had gathered around were staring in shock. Raj looked mortified and Ananya had her hand over her mouth. Even Dave looked like he wanted to disappear. "The police will be here in 10 minutes, Riley announced with satisfaction. "We will see how tough you are when you're explaining yourself to real law enforcement." That is when I decided the charade had gone on long enough. "Riley," I said calmly, "before the police arrive, I think you should call the front office and speak to someone in management." "I don't need to call anyone. I have full authority to handle security issues on my shift." "Actually, you don't." "Excuse me?" I pulled out my phone, speed dialed our HR director's extension. Sarah picked up on the second ring. "Hey Sarah, it's me. I need you to come down to the main production floor immediately. We got a situation that requires immediate management attention." "Of course, I'll be right down." Riley was staring at me suspiciously. "Who did you just call?" "HR." "You don't have authority to call our HR department." I looked at her directly. "Well, actually I do." Before she could respond, I heard Sarah's voice behind me. "What's going on down here?" I turned to Sarah approaching, along with Tom, our production manager, who must have been working late. Both of them recognized me immediately, despite my casual clothes. "Sir," Sarah said, "I got your call. What's the situation?" The look of confusion on Riley's face was priceless. She was clearly trying to figure out why the HR director was calling me sir and taking directions from me. "We got a supervisor who just called 911 to report me as a potential terrorist and trespasser," I explained. Sarah's face went pale. "She did what?" Tom stepped forward, looking between Riley and me with obvious concern. "Riley, do you realize who you're talking to?" "Some contractor who's trying to cause problems," Riley replied, but her confidence was starting to waver. "Riley," Tom said slowly, "this is the company founder and CEO." The silence that followed was just deafening. Riley's face went through several different shades of red and white as the implication sank in. "That's impossible," she said weakly. "The owner wouldn't be walking around the factory floor dressed like that." "Like what?" I asked. She gestured vaguely at my clothes. "Like a regular worker." "You mean like the people you supervise?" Before Riley could even answer, we heard sirens outside. The police had arrived. "Sarah," I said, "please go meet the officers and explain there's been a misunderstanding. Let them know we don't need their assistance anymore." As Sarah hurried towards the main entrance, I turned back to Riley. Now let's talk about what I observed tonight. Riley was clearly in panic mode.
Look, I didn't know who you were. If you had just identified yourself from the beginning, none of this would have happened.
So you're saying the problem is that I didn't announce myself as the owner?
Well, yes. How was I supposed to know?
Well, let me ask you this, Riley. Would you have called the police if I'd been a white contractor doing the same equipment inspection? The question hung in the air. Riley's mouth opened and closed a few times, but no words came out. Because I watched you interact with workers tonight, I continued, and I noticed a very clear pattern in how you treat people based on their ethnicity and accent.
That's not true. I treat everyone the same.
Really? Because I heard you tell Ananya that you don't know how her people did things back in India, and I heard you tell Raj about standards in whatever third world country he crawled out of. Should I continue? By now, a crowd of workers had gathered, including several who had witnessed Riley's earlier comments, and their faces told the whole story. Tom was shaking his head in disgust. Riley, is this true?
I was just trying to maintain productivity standards,
Riley said defensively. By making racist comments about employees' countries of origin?
I never said anything racist.
Raj stepped forward. With respect, you absolutely did, multiple times tonight. Ananya nodded in agreement. She told me that I was just a quality checker and that I needed to learn how things are done in America. Other workers began speaking up, sharing their own experiences with Riley's discriminatory behavior over the past several months. A picture emerged of systematic harassment targeting employees of color, particularly those with foreign accents or names. Sarah returned with the two police officers who looked confused but professional as they assessed the situation. Officers, I said, I apologize for the confusion. I'm the owner of this company, and there was a miscommunication about my presence here tonight. We don't need any law enforcement assistance. One of the officers looked at Riley. Ma'am, you called in a report of trespassing and possible industrial espionage? Riley looked like she wanted to crawl into a hole. Where she belongs.
There was a misunderstanding about who this person was.
So there's no crime being committed? Yep, no crime, I confirmed. The officers exchanged glances, made some notes. We will need to file a report about the false call, but since no one wants to press charges, we'll just mark it as unfounded. After the police left, I asked Sarah and Tom to gather Riley's evening shift crew in the break room. I wanted to address the situation with everyone present, and about 20 workers filed in, looking uncertain about what was gonna happen. I stood at the front of the room while Riley sat at one of the tables, still looking shell-shocked. So first, I began, I want to apologize to all of you for what happened tonight. What you witnessed was completely unacceptable and doesn't represent the values of this company. I looked around the room, making eye contact with workers I'd seen Riley harass earlier. But second, I want to make something absolutely clear. This company was built by people from all backgrounds, ethnicities, and countries of origin. Our diversity is one of our greatest strengths, and anyone who doesn't understand that does not belong in a leadership position here. Several workers nodded in agreement. I could see relief on faces that had been tense with stress and uncertainty. Finally, I want everyone to know that there will be consequences for what happened tonight. Discriminatory behavior and harassment will not be tolerated. Period. I turned to Riley. Effective immediately, you're suspended pending a full investigation into your conduct. Sarah will escort you to collect your personal belongings. Riley's face crumpled.
Please, I need this job. I made a mistake, but I can learn from it.
The mistake was not just tonight, I replied. Based on what I observed and what your coworkers have shared, this has been an ongoing pattern of behavior that's created a hostile work environment for multiple employees.
I will change. I will take sensitivity training, whatever you want.
I shook my head. Riley, tonight you called the cops and described me as a potential terrorist based solely on my ethnicity. You have consistently harassed employees based on their accents and countries of origin. You've created unsafe working conditions by pressuring technicians to skip safety protocols. These are not mistakes, they are fundamental character flaws that make you unsuitable for any leadership role in this company. The investigation that followed was thorough but concluded quickly. HR interviewed every member of Riley's shift and the pattern of discriminatory behavior was just overwhelming. We also discovered that she had been falsifying some safety inspection reports to make her productivity numbers look better, so Riley was terminated for cause a few days afterwards. Because the discriminatory harassment was well documented, she was not eligible for unemployment benefits. Word spread quickly through the local manufacturing community, and I doubt she will find another supervisory position anytime soon. The aftermath was actually pretty positive. With Riley gone, evening shift productivity immediately improved, workers felt more comfortable raising safety concerns and suggesting process improvements, and Nanya implemented a new quality control protocol that caught a batch of defective parts before they even shipped, saving us about $30,000 in potential warranty claims. The whole experience reminded me why I started this company in the first place. I wanted to create a workplace where people are valued for their skills and contributions, not judged by their appearance or accent. Riley's behavior was everything I'd built the company to stand against. And yeah guys, I gotta say, calling 911 on the owner of the factory while standing inside his factory is a level of workplace self-own that most people spend decades trying to avoid usually. That is not shooting yourself in the foot, that is building the gun, calibrating it, writing the safety manual, ignoring the safety manual, and then aiming directly at your own employment status. I gotta say, this person was a very good shooter. And a user in the comments said, everyone saying you should have intervened earlier is living in a fantasy world where HR fires people based on one overheard comment from an owner who was already looking for problems. In the real world, you need documentation, patterns, and witnesses willing to corroborate your story. You got all of that in one evening because you kept your mouth shut and let Riley be Riley. And another, slightly more unhinged Reddit comment said, look, I know I am gonna get destroyed for this, but you're the a-hole here, and here's why. You literally LARPed as a contractor in your own building and watched your employees get harassed in real time for hours without stepping in. You stood there while Ananya got berated, you stood there while Raj was told to crawl back to his country. You had the power to stop it at any moment, but you didn't. And yeah guys, let me know what you think about this in the comments. And the next one is from r/malicious compliance and is titled Nasty Facts from a Lawyer. So part of my job is to answer FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Act, or APRA, Access to Public Records, and medical billing reports. An attorney in a neighboring state requested medical records for their client who we treated. The records were provided the same day. I pride myself on getting any invoices paid the same day or the next business day when I received them, the same for APRA, etc. 2 weeks go by and I get a secondary request from the same attorney, so I faxed the records a second time and mailed them out. Today, I get a fax with a request for the same records with this in the fax cover sheet. This is the third request for these records. Okay, now I am crazy about this. So I dig out the reports that were sent, compile all 3 bundles, run them through the scanner to get a count of the page amount, 49 pages. Perfect. I've now faxed that bundle out to them 4 times today and will continue to do so until it is time for me to go home for the day. By the way, after this occurred, I found out that a coworker also sent these records out to the same attorney 3 times, and our contracted billing department also sent the answer 3 times. Also, by the way, there's no charge for e-docs. Medical records are not charged because they don't fall under APRA, and yes, 3 phone and fax number is the same. When you can, you get the attorney's auto attendant. The fax chime sends it to their fax line. And yeah guys, I hope you have an amazing day and I will see you again tomorrow.